ni jaijo yeni seseni TV East otoma osawalo akoronga jauni jo program kon lebuni angeni mukaga ageon sanwangon la tupurich to ni sawani kanyape lo aparan ne raine Airabet walk ane kotomo TV East de ngonowa omuyangi sajaine kede jo bia bajare kone sabiti bia bidatro yola suban ani bona jasuna posike so maikina jo otomo kale kon otomo iboisti koni jaiyo yitute bon botomo program lo erani tatama kirono ipu ni kamera kede ipu gae la kirono teso keda Uganda kere akiron kamera keda kirianut na teker na iteso akiron kamera keda yuara na teker na iteso ido yauni ne engarnon lego ikiti jo arabo lego ikiti tungalu atekere konache otoma iboisio aneja ikero otoma dokera itarera LOC1 LOC3 district council LOC5 osodi anoino ingun lueja sila je toma Airabet na Polon na ko Uganda arabo MPs idolo atupuruchana jengone kede diopet kotomo ngarnok luwe Paul agogo kotoma oteso eja kaita ochole eraida ngesi lego ikiti tungalu otema bia ko district kalwa muria renge se district councilor rebo LOC5 councilor ida ko nga jawnjo toma togo yala mayo
ango yala manga dumu ni jo
ebo
akudo ngara pakina noi malaika tungalu hulo teso kaesulu uli sesenete so kaesulu Uganda beraina arire nkapakina jok onene rakini ariteker kadoke taita na pola tuptos kwani technology la yaunu lo piloteso kasesene so akobo nganga napano dakapa arire na ngari ikachan erituru kangule to kiatos luminan osodi ngulu numunu metike weddings lolo na mukanga akurongi jaune so aitupuso yalama ebo
ijo ile sesene raila jakaita Moses Ochole district councilor lego ikitunga labia o district la muria ida rainge se tungana leje no akiron kamera kile politics se general teso ko pe political analyst ilimoto yongo berajo kwa na igigo ikit district councilors lo teso kerare bubiai
yonga rai chapason kech eno yonga mor kikiti kwesi e kape chapason lo le councilors kere ona ngino teso
otoma pugai ban bono ulga arebo
mameu na kosi mambiri gwa kita uluga konyibuni asesene inaine ministry a notification and so our parking as countrywide and so da kwa nado munu ayumine pongtule pola pugan
ebo
yalama
so rengone jakaita Moses Ochole ejaine kedoni area kirone posi kotoma atupuruchikana lolo jenbon boto mo programa le dos bere nyabuka binyoba soma sia laije kotoma Airabet dona bongna imbe pone bani imeda kinataringun ijoe tungana lo kwap arebe pone bani be tor yoda eshisha unelo sete akonya laije kotoma Airabet otomo records kalo ajata rengane ajaga Moses Ochole kede esulu sesenete TV is talking up akirona posi kotomo sabitalo nesino ija uno nailonin alaije kotoma Airabet no potu MPs itigogo ngosi and kamana kerebe the approval of a request for a loan amounting to $331.5 million. Nebu nikede grant lo ikapun $276.5 million. Ne diauta ikotoma tukoto ngina ka International Development Association of the World Bank Group. And eraina lo skineta na ikeuno aigaija ikina gangad ni kapun no ewa ingon lo akiron kamana kena kimina KPA. Nebaka ibonbe electricity access scale up project. So nebaka akirone posik ne kota inda bonbe ikeuno itunga leje atari keda kimne KPI from 24% to 44%. Ido erai na ikeun tunga nara ikupantunga leje atari keda kimne KPI erai 70,000. So they want to increase up to 300,000 akimne KPI ay atakin connections gun otoma rina nokwap ano chalo nyokwa by 2027. That is the target. Ngesa polo ni jautere ikapunulu. Ira ikopana jona Uganda ikapundu elo mutoz otoma pak na ekekesenoi usabiti lopolo obwa ekomiti lao itakirona national economy kotoma Airabet abeti na jaud nekede honorable Ikoyo John Bosco ngesera chairperson of the committee of national economy ala Airabet konyobu ino mesimu ilipita timio bejasbere bacheno yanga tozi ngesi konyoto musabiti alo bwe committee on the national economy itacha ubone itolo makirobonbe Uganda's public debt stock has increased by 22% from 50.9 trillion in the financial year of 2019-2020 to 69.5 trillion by the end of 2020-2021 fiscal year. Okara jela PI. So kopani neroni eoko public debt adolo 79 trillion shillings. ngesika pun lebete
na sodite
ngesika pun brown e baka ba dolo ne baka be red index
na sodite takoto be ngai e shalam kini jo anu jala chune reporting on number 1 kapa kwa Uganda kodo ngoja misikin 2020 poto ne kapa Uganda eso mata imports lo adole tene peta ibilo nini iari chunya ikanya ndo America lo poto ina kison ne peta trillions it tomon e kai bilo nini akai sangon aluongon kai milo nini akula kanya pa kaisa kanya uni representing ne peta 2.8 billion was spent anwa ya unu borakai no Kenya akwapo Kenya Nigeria yobibake keria nutu elala de parna oi Uganda ane okiden Africa obu iswama ne petai a business 11 point something percent say a reflection yo bitosomata less than 1.7 billion na solid ni dolo ni obanya ngoni lo a poll 79 trillion
yes
without the demand of China iburayo ni nepetai 5 point something trillion as a separate debt about 20% of that debt lomta kwa panakai China as government kapa pugani mambo je bait ko plan to continue borrowing money narai how are you going to repay the money is now the big question ideology on peta is 79 trillion so idumujo bonbe ko pani sirigini una peta alomasi I would say 22 billion over US dollars now puganisa no kwa kere it is a quest consolidation how are we managing our financial flow as a country we collect revenue and we spend we don't have the sustainable policy that drives the economy anyu ndabunwe kwanika punulu edilepon epunele tachere I can tell you jakato moya a country like South Korea 70% eramur araimur mame pedorete ikidio kichorin ikidio ko amagoron e mame taril pokone pedorete akor konyopo of pedosi to invest much into innovation, into technology. And anwanyu da bonbe pedote kwesi to represent the will of the people. A pedote kwesi is to sustain the economy. This year alone, South Korea was able to export 18.4 billion US dollars on machinery, electronics. And where was the market? Africa. If you exchange 18 billion in America, nepeta covering it okonyo
national budget.
A national budget. The nuclear reactors, Korea alone, South Korea, was able again to export in a peta 13.3 billion. You break it down. Obunijo plastic and chemicals, they were able to export about 5.4 billion. So it shows you the commitment of technology, the commitment of governments. Are we able to turn the economy around? Kutoka maiki ni jo. Irayo na akwap na nebaka Uganda, we are landlocked. But when you face the West, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and the North, South Sudan, right in a potential market, and no akwap na pedor to produce and sustain the economy. Irayo na akwap na I would say jayo ni boro eja. I would say you cannot spend 34% on your imports. Omame ijo agogo na ina pedalajo da ayanga borai kinga. So most of the time the shilling all the time is being exchanged into the dollar, not the dollar into the shilling, and we are in that crisis because we are unable to produce what our neighbors can consume or what we can do. And another critical thing, how do you manage the debt? How do you manage the debt? You must accept to cut the expenditure. You must accept to reduce the size of institutions you are managing.
When you talk about the expenditure, our national budget, 70% goes to the expenditure. And then about 29 or 20 per the rest is the what remains for development and you know.
First of all, Mr. Umuya, I don't know the development you're talking about. When you traverse the whole country, people are crying for money. You cannot have a loan running to a tune of 79 trillion. And you're talking about development. Let me give you an example. In 2003, Saudi Arabia had a debt burden of about 80%. What they did, they introduced a policy to invest into domestic products. Oil is one of them. They were able to subcontract a number of works, I would say to local contractors. And they were able to, to convince OPEC not to give them again money as government, but to give money to citizens, private companies. By 2010, Saudi Arabia, as you know how powerful they are today, they had reduced the debt burden to only 10% from 80%. So which means that in this crisis, we can reduce them yearly if we commit to invest home, support the local industries, so that we are able to attract the dollar. It will be now the foreigners paying high taxes, not again Ugandans paying high taxes. So you need to understand, we have so many products, lu epedorete, itunga lokwap, down. Now we have a big challenge. You cannot now import babu from China. Mamji pedori kwani to import plastics. I told you, South Korea made, more than 6-something billion. And just plastics and chemicals that they exported, African country. I gave you the breakdown. Uganda in 2020, as by the, I would say the global index, indicated we had the imported goods was 2.8 trillion. Billion Ugandan currency over, I would say 10 trillion. American currency is 2.8 billion. That is a huge amount. If you trusted your own people, give them money, invest in them, improve the technology, the 10-point-something trillion would have stayed in Uganda. Subtract 10 trillion from 79. Each year would be reducing the debt by 15 trillion. But we are not conscious of our borrowing. We are just borrowing, because we have things that don't matter. We have things that we can do without. I can tell you, the country today and the global world is struggling for solar. Why would government borrow money now to extend rural electrification, which I am not against whatsoever? But today we are fighting global warming and climate change. We have a crisis in health, food insecurity, seeds, etc., etc. That money perhaps would be put in right use as we struggle with a debt, and advise government to hire experts who can design cheap solar plates as affordable energy for this country.
Ebo, so akodonga ngitu njo iraje kansila gwekiri tunga lokwapo, tunga la muria, tunga la bia. Ipolokiri kansila zulote sokere. Itunga lokwapo jenete akirokano. Ejende tunga bae keona pesen.
Na solitaja kaitomoya. Ejasi local governments kopani utara. Mami rotin lepo iswamatai. Mami swamak tachitai. Itete kwesi na deki simametike. Se jenete kwesi. Mam kwesi pedorote aijen. Badoloto kwa nika punulu 79 trillion. Barapere elmo kinijo. Jenete bechono aijar. Erdakina aijar. So I can tell you, mamtunga lu okwape genete, apesenina adolo apugani. Konye amesikisi kwesi, bekekese aijar. Na idumul kwanjo bonbe etiono adum na sabuni, etiono inyam, etiono ai tachi school fees. Ara ida young mama tachi school fees ledwe. Nara as a counselor, nyamji lukumna kesa kanyari kan. Lu etiono jo even a saving.
Lukumna kesa kanyari kan pote ba doctorate banbu.
Pote kwesi kapa ex gratia. Yata nte ba kwa tata toma. I mean to make 175. Ko ino miojo esimu. Honorable Jay Wedding, Honorable Jarunis, Honorable Jaibore. So the bottom line na chaka Moya and the viewers. Nesa pugana o mom. How do we consolidate e banyalo mama polo inana limokiti ngojo bibore polo kapa pugani anyun na soditi esi di share ili pisirigini anyun da bonbe bisirigini le puma milipio also the institutional spending mamji los kwane atanikin minikap na doketano ipo nare kona tioni sina epol arema mete budget cuts imame eponelo epera pugan to recover also to respond to the crisis ulitunga amina kwap nare sirigini kere ilosete awai so idumuni yobonwe ejoko kona pugan to keep government running konye opedote kwantunga lo kwap eme down neni kwani pedoja limunube no ilos kwani so aitubu isolosini osodi jo at the share borrowing rates nyakuno kwapo once you reduce the borrowing rate you open opportunity for very many people to go into business and they will be able to repay government through taxes. But now the biggest problem, the interest rates are high. Ije borong sirigini apugan a polonyo interest rate of bank, including a bank and apugan. So there's no way government can recover money without showing total commitment to its citizens. How? I mean, by opening, business opportunities. And who has the money? It's the banks. And who controls the banks is central bank. And central bank is controlled by government. So you need to break down smartly. Also, in the next 10 years, or 5 years, we are going to operate under a tight economy. And you can also go for a financial bailout. You write to rich countries and ask them, forgive me, I mismanage the loan. If they can bail you out. It happened with Greece in 2011. European Union had to forgive you. Greece. In 1980, it happened with Ghana. Ghana had to apply for a financial bailout and explain to the rich people, the more we insist, the country will be plugged into economic crisis and we may not be able to recover. It will take a lot of time. And we need also to provide political management. We need to tolerate politicians and we must accept that we have failed as leaders. Alternative now is to provide strong economic leadership for this country. How can we provide strong economic leadership that can rescue the country? I can tell you, in 2007 and 2008, you understand, the global recession. Most of the countries went into recession, including superpowers. But what helped the United States, most of the assets were not in the hands of the foreigners. So it was, very easy for government to manage. Today, business wokolo a poll, ejakani no itonga lu awai, alimokini ngojo. Luka down na gwelana rikeboro kapani, ibong, ke banking kapun, ibong, Bank of India. In Korea, South Korea, you cannot sneak with the profit unless you leave 20%. How many of our investors, you talk about the Chinese, you talk about the Indians, you talk about the Pakistanians, and others are committed to leave the 20% which belongs to this country.
So that should be another point of discussion.
That should be now the policy question. you need now very strong economic leadership that will do checks and balances to ensure that who is the investor, what are you paying for, what are you giving Ugandans, and what are you up to. It's not just about you collecting money and deposit. You must have the will of that country. It's that country which has given you opportunity. Esaina kijo apakina swame business. Ekoria misiki ni kwani bumbeli. The 20%, it's a must for you to live. Countries like Ethiopia, they have the same, policy.
Kenyo, recently, Obuba Pugan, ilepe private sector lenders, tungali jani ikopan kineti loan in Neja Pugan, to advance about 500 million euros, about 1.9 trillion. Noanyi nwengeta kino kwa nekarula pia ilijone 2022-2023. Obalas da bonebe ikapunlu erayu ne ponelo tijaunere through Standard Chartered Bank. Now, buwa nepaneni in November around in November there was a public call by the Minister of Finance Ngezeke Unakirongon. That was Olapalopolo. Now, ira igubojo wapul nejar the last approval of loans, which has gone to a total amount of 2.5 trillion, more than half of what government had planned. Does it show that there is really poor planning and management of Ikapunlu and Yapugan?
Na so Muya and the viewers out there. You see, the one biggest problem in this arrangement all of borrowing money, to me, is the interest rate. World over, I have never seen you have ever borrowed money, I borrow money. You cannot put insurance to be at 10%. Let me be very honest to you. Which means that if government is paying 1 trillion, the person who borrowed money to government is receiving, first of all, 100 billion. I have never seen such business conducted, world over. Insurance alone, to take 10% of the money. No, let's be realistic. It is usually between 1.2 to 1.3, the highest. But also, the bank giving out money is already under insurance. It is not the person borrowing the money who is to pay insurance. The business is not for government in the bank. The business is for an individual or a private-owned company. The other funny bit that I may say, citizens cannot be richer than government. It shows you that some of our people in government and outside government can easily connive and push for this kind of arrangement, that let's borrow money. After all, it's 9-point-something trillion, which means that government will pay wasted money to those who have connived, for those who have really worked hard to get commission, a tune of 900 billion. If you are to compute 10% of 9.7 trillion, it gives you almost another trillion, which means that the owners of the deal will sit somewhere in this country to divide the billions amongst themselves as individuals. And yet you know very well that we are in crisis. Adam, Emonara, we are in crisis of roads in this country. 900 billion. I can open all roads in the Teso sub-region, the feeder roads, that can help the people access the market for their commodities. So I am against the idea of government borrowing money from private banks, then hide interest of 10% of insurance. I have given you an index that no country in the world can charge you 10% as insurance. In fact, it's even a high interest rate. Now, if you add 10% of the insurance, and you also add, the borrowing rate of the all of the money, how much shall government pay that loan?
yala mangoja itachauna kirong kutongo na yamu tubera paka dio dona bong na yataki ni keda oke program ilimuri ya kironi rotin akotongo na tiror nenda join seseno kingangi na iroko jo jai toma Airabet walk ane kotomo TV East tatami ya kiro no yatatar ilonin ikapuni jaunune Uganda abajan ejai keunu noi ido pacho to musabiti alo obwe komiti la yata kironuka national economy otoma Airabet ikewa kirobonbe keu apesen by 22%. Ailama nelem ajamu no kesali era below 50%. Ido kwa na apesen no Uganda. Ineroni figures litodio sane baka ida bonbe adol by the fiscal year of 2020-2021 erai 69.5%. Ido lolineroni adol ne baka 79 trillion shillings nesikapun lui burao Uganda lipuade pare national budget lo Uganda. Koto raya una pakadio dona bongu na losta konye keda oke program rejas joda kona misho pero yegwekin Facebook page kosi TV East. Siri kunya kawai.